This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on new Vice President. The participants are Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Nikunj Garg, journalist.
Today is once again a historic occasion in the Indian democracy, not just because of the Vice President-elect, but because the way a historic mandate has been delivered to the new Vice President-elect. Tandon Saab, what is the relevance and what is the importance of the post of Vice President?
Since independence, for a few decades, there was a one-party rule. The President, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, the Speaker Lok Sabha, all used to belong to one party, Congress Party. Now, then not today, perhaps it's the first time since independence that any party other than Congress is now occupying all important positions. That is a very significant step in Indian democracy, that when people used to talk that there is only one party rule in India, and then people of India started changing governments at the state level, at the central level, and that was as if democracy has taken roots in India. So today we have reached a situation in which another All India party, Bharatiya Janata Party, today has got its president elected, its vice president got elected, it has the prime minister, and it also has the speaker of Lok Sabha. So that is one very historic and significant change which Indian democracy has witnessed. Now coming to the election of Mr. Venkaiah Naidu as the vice president, one significant feature which is being noticed is the record margin with which he has won. It's rather amazing because, of course, the decision and the outcome was foregone conclusion. NDA did have majority. But NDA candidate Venkaiah Naidu has polled more votes than the NDA actual vote strength. That means even at this stage, when Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi enjoyed the support of 18 opposition parties, he still could not manage all the votes. And some votes from the non-NDA also gone in favor of Venkaiah Naidu. But another rather sad indication which still haunts all of us is that 11 votes were invalid. But good thing is that as compared with the presidential election where 71 votes were invalid, here only 11 votes got invalid. But it's a sad thing because the electoral college consisted only of members of parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And they all represent more than 5-10 lakh people. And they themselves contest election. At the time of vice presidential poll, 11 members invalidating their vote. So I think Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's election has been welcomed by everybody, including Gopal Krishna Gandhi has also said it's a victory of Indian democracy. It's a matter of numbers. Decision and the outcome was foregone conclusion. He has congratulated Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, and now Venkaiah Naidu as the Vice President will also have to discharge his constitutional obligation as presiding officer in the Rajya Sabha where NDA lacks a majority. So therefore, things are not going to be that easy for him. There will be challenges, of course, but he is competent enough to handle all situations. He has been member of the Rajya Sabha 3 terms. He has been a Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. He has held various other portfolios. So I have no reason to believe that he won't be able to overcome these challenges.
Alongside the fact that you say that it's a victory of Indian democracy, another important point is that in terms of Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's elevation itself, he started from humble beginnings. Started as a normal ordinary worker, became the district president, party president, and every stage he has himself spent some time before his elevation came. So in that sense also it's a victory of the grassroots of Indian democracy.
Certainly. See, nowadays we see in all walks of life, people with humble beginning, coming from low middle class families, they are occupying high positions. In sports we see that, in politics also. And we have a Prime Minister who also had a humble beginning. So nowadays it's not that people are born with silver spoon in their mouth. So Venkaiah Naidu is also one of those leaders, as you rightly said, has come up through the ranks as a student leader, long struggle and very distinguished career, I must say, and now occupying this position. It sends out a very important and significant message to the common man in this country that one of us can also occupy these high posts. So, aspirations of people also go up as well as their faith in Indian democracy also. Because son of a farmer, coming from a rural background, then struggling all through, remaining in the opposition for most of his career. When somebody occupies a constitutional position like vice president, I think it's a symbol that in India anything is possible. Even people with humble background, born in farmer's family, can also rise and occupy high positions. So to that extent, it is a tribute to Indian democracy. That's why I'm glad that everybody has said it's a victory of Indian democracy. So I think we all should take pride in Indian democracy. It has got deep roots now. As I said earlier, the change of government by the people through peaceful voting is really the strength of Indian democracy.
Pride of the moment is that Mr. Naidu himself is a man who affableness is cutting across the party lines. Nobody in the opposition ranks also can probably challenge his humility, his candor, his outspokenness, and therefore that's also in a way a tribute to the fact that at most times Indian democracy, Indian polity particularly, can rise above the partisanship.
It has. Certainly Indian democracy on many occasions has risen above the party line. Whenever there is threat to India's security, sovereignty and integrity, all opposition, all segments of the society, they are united. And on many other occasions, even in this particular case, when there was a contest, and in democracy there should be contest, but the grace with which the campaign was carried, both sides, and then after the victory of Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, the humility with which every section, all leaders were congratulating him. So I think in this context, the victory of Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, which was a foregone conclusion, and at the same time, the fact that the opposition did not allow the post of vice president to go uncontested, and also one important factor, at least 18 opposition parties could rally around Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi. In fact, my personal view is that if the combined opposition had fielded Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi as presidential candidate, things would have been slightly better, although perhaps decision and the outcome may not have been different. But in this particular case, parties like JDU, parties like Trinamool, and parties like BJD, they have also supported Gopal Krishna Gandhi, whereas in the presidential election, some of these parties, JDU and BJD in particular, were supporting Ramnath Kovind of the NDA. So I think this was also in a way an attempt by the opposition in the run-up to the 2019 election to forge some kind of a united front against the NDA, where they have succeeded to some extent in case of the vice presidential election, because 18 parties stood together and they supported Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi. But NDA ranks also swelled. Surprisingly, in the recent past, parties particularly from Andhra, Telangana and Tamil Nadu, they have also come out openly in support of NDA, although the BJP enjoys a comfortable majority in Lok Sabha, but still they are trying to strengthen NDA, bringing in more and more regional parties into its fold. So I think both the NDA and the rival Mahagathbandhan, if we can call it, are basically positioning themselves for the 2019 Lok Sabha election, and let's see how it works. But in this particular election of vice president, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's victory is remarkable, and it has sent out a very clear signal that in democracy, highest constitutional positions when contested also can have a peaceful transition of power, where the campaign is within restraint, and the voting pattern also was really good. 91-92% members polled their votes. All this goes on to speak volume of Indian democracy.
Sir, it would not be out of context here, and I think it's important for our listeners to know the importance other than the sanctimoniousness of the post of vice president itself.
It is a constitutional position, and our founding fathers had looked at the American constitution while thinking of the head of state, because we borrowed parliamentary democracy from Britain, where there is a monarchy, but we were republic, and in a republic you have to have the head of the state also indirectly or directly elected by the people of India. So in America, the president is the head of the state. In India also, we have a president who is head of the state. In US, the vice president, he presides over the Senate. Here in India, the vice president presides over the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha. So all the sanctity is there. But apart from his constitutional obligation and ceremonial responsibilities as vice president, his main responsibility in today's context, the way Indian Parliament functions, is all the more important as presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha. And that is where Mr. Venkaiah Naidu will be on test, because he has the experience of being a member of the Rajya Sabha. Sabha, but now he will be occupying neutral position. So he will have to carry all the opposition leaders along to have a very smooth functioning, orderly functioning of the Rajya Sabha, and that is where everybody will be watching Mr. Venkaiah Naidu in his new role.
Mr. Naidu himself has said that, from today he is a no-party man. And BJP just last week has become the single largest party in Rajya Sabha. Of course, Rajya Sabha still remains that kind of final frontier for them, because obviously in Lok Sabha, neither the opposition has the numbers and the BJP has the strength. But in Rajya Sabha, they have the strength, and that's where we have seen the maximum halla-gulla also of the last 3 years. So you think, the bigger challenge, as you said, would for the passage of legislation also will come in Rajya Sabha, and that's where Mr. Naidu's skills would be at test?
Now being a neutral person, he is an apolitical person. He can't be seen. In fact, if justice should not be done, but it should appear to be done also, and that is where the presiding officers will come in. Although the BJP has become the single largest party in the Rajya Sabha for the first time, but it still lacks majority, and the combined opposition can stall the legislative business. They can, in fact, send back certain legislations to Lok Sabha, but that is where the skills of the presiding officers also comes into force at the same time of the whips also. But the presiding officer can always call a meeting of the Business Advisory Committee in his chamber, sort out issues, give ample time to the opposition to raise their issues of concern, because they also represent the state. So I think the best part as far as the role of the presiding officer is concerned, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu will have to strike a very good balance between the opposition and the ruling, so that not only the functioning is smooth, orderly, but also the business is conducted, including the opposition voice against on certain issues, and the government business, which is legislative business, should also be conducted so that the bills can be passed.
And that's where also the real test of Vice President comes in. Mr. Hamid Ansari, a distinguished man, serving his second term, but in terms of the logjam, he was probably unable to break it because most ruckus was coming from the side of his party colleagues only.
I won't blame Mr. Hamid Ansari for that, because Mr. Hamid Ansari also has been a very distinguished Vice President for 2 terms, and he has not given any occasion for even the opposition to blame him for functioning in a partisan manner. But sometimes the politics is such that there is anger in the minds of members of Parliament, and they have to raise their voice. So therefore disruptions in Parliament, particularly in the Rajya Sabha, is basically to highlight the issues. And this is where presiding officers can try to persuade the members, but beyond a certain point, he also becomes helpless. I think it's a challenge, because nowadays, with the advent of electronic media, disruptions get more coverage, and people who make good speech, they don't get coverage. Therefore, as we call it, playing to the gallery, members also play to the gallery. Disruptions are part of this playing to the gallery, and I won't say that there should not be any live coverage of the Parliament proceeding, but the fact remains that because of live coverage of Parliament, disruptions get more coverage than the productive speeches or even a serious business.
One important thing that our listeners would want to know is, how does the Vice President function? He functions as an independent secretariat, like the President of India, like the Prime Minister, or is he dependent on other arms for his functionality?
Vice President of India, as the Constitution envisages, is basically as number 2 head of the state. In case of any contingency or exigency, the Vice President takes over. And in India, since independence, it has happened twice. Dr. Zakir Husain's death, the Vice President became acting President, and in the case of Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed's death, Mr. V.V. Giri became acting President. This is one constitutional obligation which the Vice President would discharge. Second, of course, is the presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha. So he has got a secretariat. There is a Rajya Sabha Secretary General, full-fledged secretariat. But as far as other jobs are concerned, he is Chancellor of some university. He presides over certain constitutional appointments like Prasar Bharati. So he has his secretariat, but it's a very limited secretariat. There is no separate secretariat as large as the President of India.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on new Vice President. The participants were Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Nikunj Garg, journalist. The program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.